All right, I'm just gonna start talking, and whatever is encapsulated in this video, I'm going to post. I'm doing this to practice speaking authentically and in raw form, and not necessarily preparing some itinerary. I might have an idea or two before I step in to film, but right now I don't. So when I look off the screen, it's because I'm nervous or, nervous or kind of like not being present maybe. And that's not me reading some paper or something of what to talk about. I noticed in the last video, I looked down and I was like, I wonder if people think I'm reading a list of things to say. So I'm not. I'm just nervous. But yeah, I also had a realization when looking at my last video that looking into the lens is kind of like looking at the user. And so if you're not looking straight at the lens like I'm doing right now, you're technically kind of looking off slightly by maybe not even consciously notable by the viewer, but definitely subconsciously noticed. Or if I look away, right, it looks even more weird. So I'm trying to work on little tiny improvements like that. And I think about how much energy am I trying to put into these, and where should I put that energy, and at what point is it exceeding the likely output, and so I don't need to overthink it. For example, when I set up the scene, it's important to set up the scene in a way that I'm not super ashamed of it in the long term, but I'm not going to set up the scene where I'm just overthinking. For example, there's suitcases, because we've been waiting to get a dresser, so there's suitcases of clothes, and I could move that away, but I would have had to drag that all the way over there, and then that compromises the whole setup of our baby-proofed house, and so I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna leave it. But I did take time to move another one that was right here, so I'm putting a little effort into the production, and I consciously chose to be slightly farther away from the camera this time. I'm putting a little more effort into kind of reacquainting with my systems of hard drive and file management and transferring things over and just kind of having my gear a little bit more organized, and that's been very helpful as well. So those are the iterations that I've been sort of walking through and integrating since the last video to now. So I'm going to try to look more often at the lens. And I'm making these videos for sort of logging my life. And gosh, if I had videos like this of my dad, those would be very valuable, very valuable. And I think anyone that's lost someone close to them can see that value. Not that I want to think about how I'm doing this to leave to those that I leave behind after my time. I hope it's in a long time. But that is a reality. What are we leaving, So I think about that, and when I first started to code and think of use cases of things I actually wanted to build, now that I can code basic websites, what could I code that would kind of get me an understanding of the venture I want to create? And so I started to dabble in different things, a AI React interface over a backend servicing company, and I started playing with that, and Stoic quotes and a Stoic course community, and that led me to kind of shaping Tekka as this campus to grow, because I'm not necessarily a Stoic enthusiast. I just love knowledge that helps me grow as an individual and find the deeper connections and more expansive perspectives. So expanding my awareness and trying to basically deal with the day-to-day life in a way that's more pleasing in the short term and the long term. So it's not necessarily trying to seek mastery in the sense of being the best craftsman, but it's just kind of holding on to that as I craft all the areas of my life. So how can I just be more of a craftsman across all areas of my life, and not necessarily needing to be the best at one specific thing. I guess you would call that a generalist, but being more intentional and mindful as a generalist, that's kind of where it led me. But one of the projects, back to the coding, one of the projects that I started to think of was Typo. And I've thought about some form of this interface for 5 to 7 years. I remember being with my old co-founder, and we were like sitting by my pool and like drawing what we thought the ideal interface would be, and like using iPad, and we realized what it was. And I remember some friend of ours leaned over our shoulder because they knew we were like tapping into something, and we called it Rainbow Protocol, and it was basically the idea of windows and doors, and those are the components of the interface. And so basically you have windows to show you things, and if you can think of Linktree as the perfect aggregation of windows. It's just things to see and click and take you like externally somewhere. And there's not like a second page on Linktree. You can't like learn more and click and go to a new tab deeper into the Linktree. You can do that with websites, but websites are a pain to build and manage, and they're scattered. I can't jump from from my friend's site to your site, to my grandma's site, back to my site, without having to go through like, imagine doing that. Like literally do that, and it would take you like, 60 seconds to like 5 minutes, because you'd get stopped and looked through things, and yeah. So anyways, that's not really the full point. What's really important is that the spaces that all these people create, whether they're websites or docs like backend or stacks of links or images, what's important is that my world is next to your world, and we can move fluidly between them and create access points of, view access, edit access to collaborate across the platform. And so in a way, it's like a metaverse. It's just flat, which is more useful generally. We don't need to be like enthralled with the digital world. I think we're all very much okay with it being flat for now, and we can just be enthralled with the human world around us. I think, in fact, it's probably healthier. So yeah, I think the metaverse will be flat. And I've related to that with a friend who, his dad created Macintosh, and we talked in Hawaii about how the metaverse will be mostly flat, but people don't know it yet. And he invented the infinite scroll. So it was like to have that conversation with someone that's created impactful like feature standards in the industry, in the economy. Like the infinite scroll is like across every tool as far as like social goes. But yeah, definitely think the metaverse will be flat, and I think Typo is kind of that simulation. But I started to think about how I wanted to build like a family tree app with my like basic coding skills, because I was challenging myself with projects that I actually cared about so that I would actually do them. And I realized that the Typo concept could do the family tree app. And I realized, and it can do that one, and it can do that. Like it could do the Stoicism community. It could share quotes. It's just this modular interface that can kind of creatively fulfill lots of use cases. And Notion is the best example of that available today. It's the building blocks allow you to compile media of different types and data and texts and organize it in a way to do many, many things. It's very siloed, it's very clunky, and it's very, I guess, rigid. Like you need something that covers the entire sphere of your life, not just one little block. And so that's what I'm trying to have Typo be, which is kind of like this central pillar that expands into all of these different rooms that may be public and may be private and may be shared. And you kind of decide and you go as you go. So anyways, that's what I'm building. And I'm just going to talk about it sometimes because it helps me process it. Today I built out these schematics that show a creator that I discovered and kind of like a demographic of how I discovered them, what their metrics are, and more so like it's a male artist, musician. This is how I found them. They had a tweet that went viral, like kind of like a little like blurb about them, with some general demographic stats, and then what they had in their bio, and then what that led to. And so for the use case that I started with, it's like a creator with a link tree with like 7 links about being featured in magazines, announcing new songs, a link that also aggregated, it was a second link that aggregated all of their streaming platforms in one place, and then a YouTube channel, and then all their socials, and then some store you could buy a poster or some magazine at. So I listed all of that on a Miro, like a full diagram, and then I put right next to it with typo. And so this was a digital footprint without typo, and this is a digital footprint with typo. And so I'm gonna go through and fill in how I think they would use it, and I'll create a simulated typo. And then I'll plug in the pieces that need to be plugged in and replace the pieces that can be replaced. And so the idea is I would create these and understand the product and see where we need to prioritize. So like lots of people have email capture, Substack. Lots of people have the need to fill out a form. Lots of websites have contact forms. People want to book. So I'm trying to find the trends and not just, make assumptions. I'm trying to find like actual data. So I'm going to break down all of these different case studies. I spent like 15 minutes talking to the owner of a bakery today. And she's super nice, and she just showed me every platform they use. They spend like $3,000 on their events booking software. She showed me like the app where she manages her recipes, which is the initial question I asked. I said, how do you store your recipes? And I was thinking she would say Google Docs or Paper, but she told me about this app that she uses. It's like some old dinky app, but it was pretty cool. And I listed why she liked it, and I went through everything in her digital footprint. And so the same way I did with that artist and broke down where their link tree led them to, I'm doing this with the bakery owner of a local baker. And I'm just going to do this with as many people as I can, as long as it's intriguing to me. And then I'll start to make sure the product fits. And I'm with this bakery use case, for example, I'm going to reach out and like meet with her again and like show her what I did, if it works out. So I'm just experimenting with those right now. I had a call with a friend who he has a really cool brand called A Supper Series, and his name's Luke, and he said like he checked out Typo, and like for 4 minutes he had like an enjoyable experience on Typo. He got to know so many things about me. The journal feature, the daily journals on my page publicly, and seeing journals publicly was like a really cool concept for him, and he was like genuinely stoked. And he's gonna make an account, and we're gonna just jam on features he wants, and I'll help kind of show him how to use it, and get his feedback. So that was cool. And then I had an investor friend last night make an account, and when I saw his account this morning, because when I go to search on the shortcut modal, I see creators being suggested as I type. And so I was like, oh, Carter made a page? And I went to his page and I was like, I didn't know he played tennis in college, and I didn't know he lived in, I think it was Nebraska. I might be wrong, but I didn't know all these things. And the beauty is I could go right back and I could discover it in the same exact ecosystem as where I'm writing about myself and writing about my day. And obviously I'm experimenting, but journaling in public is actually really cool because it allows you to be really intentional with what you're saying and realizing that what you're leaving is a legacy. The same way if you passed on, someone could pick up your journal, like your kid someday, and they could look in it and see things. It's doing that, but kind of like getting some of that lesson early. I don't know. But I've been really enjoying it. I'm still journaling like physically on paper and in Notion. And before I used to just do physical in Notion. And now I'm doing Typo, Notion, and physical. But I found that 2 days in a row, I forgot to do my journals on Notion. There was 2 missing dates. And so I had to recreate those dates and catch up. But I put highlights on those notes, on those journal entries that I forgot to do them because I was using Typo, which is so cool. So, what else? Oh yeah, I emailed Peter Thiel last night, and I use Superhuman, and you can see when people read messages and how often, at what time, which is crazy. But I guess that's pretty standard in like DM culture and stuff too. But anyways, I just like wrote a full like honest export of what I wanted to say to him. And I basically started it off with, I mean, I guess I could just read it. Hold on. All right, so I said, "Hi Peter, I remember hearing your name in the early Facebook story as one of the first believers and mentors to Mark on his rise. I always thought of this scenario where you found my project and saw what I saw early the same way, so I figured I'd give it a shot. I'm building something I think is just as fundamental as what Facebook was 20 years ago, a social and SaaS platform where anyone, regardless of technical skill, can run the same kind of digital stack that creators and teams use to thrive in today's economy. 80% of people don't have a website. It's actually more. Cost and technical barriers get in the way, but we've begun to solve this, and I want to partner with the right people to scale it. Here's more on my Typo, where I'm expanding on this insight. The project's called Typo. Our MVP already replaces people's need for a website, link in bio, blog, and doc system in under 5 minutes. In July and August, we're adding monetization tools, modular tiles, and our creative approach of AI. It would be an honor to have you take a look and get your take on this." And he opened it within 3 minutes. It could have just been like he deleted it, or like his system deleted it, or his assistant is the one managing that email, or some weird bug that says he opened it but it didn't. I don't know. It could be so many different things, but the fact that I took time to like truly send a message as if he might get this message, I felt like it was a breakthrough for me, because I was like, even if I get rejected or ignored or I look stupid, it doesn't matter, because that's very likely what's going to happen. And so I'm just accepting it and I'm focusing on the benefits of why I'm doing this rather than the attachment to the best ideal outcome. And that allows you to do things without as much resistance. And I think that's a big breakthrough for me, is like, wait, okay, so I'm gonna build this company, and it could be this huge, very valuable company, very impactful, but it could fail. But it all depends on you. You're the leader. You need to take this all the way. And it could still fail, but you still need to give it all you've got, because a lot will go against you to try to make you lose. You know, it's this like entropy, right? Where everything's like constantly trying to not work, and you have to kind of move it and keep it going. Because if I stop right now, Typo just dies. It's up to me to keep it alive and keep organizing it, keep my team inspired and fueled and properly compensated and everything. So anyways, I'm going through this process, and part of it is like product, brand, vision, and then marketing and sales, and like having a package to market. How do you reach investors? Where's your material? Are you registered as a company? Where? Why? How? Where is it stored? What are the systems behind the compliance calendar? What are you going to do to reach people? What are you managing? What CRMs? How do you do it? How do you manage it? You know, all of that. But I've been building all of that, and I've built the CRMs. I manage them properly. I have all those pieces, companies registered, Delaware, C Corp, like everything's set up. Everything's organized. Everything's systemized as best I can and secured as best I can. And I'm getting to this point now where it's like, all right, so now you have to outreach. You have a deck, you have a platform, you're starting to get data. Now you need to outreach and create relationships and create touch points to both the users and the investors. And so go, and so I'm talking to people, I'm starting to test things. I'm using it myself. I'm creating these like diagrams to help me understand case studies. And I'm putting in the work, making the simulations, and it's working. Like there's a new user every 12 hours. But now I need a new user every 12 minutes in the next few weeks, right? So that's kind of where I'm learning and growing and where it's being pointed towards. So that's fun. But yeah, just not being afraid to be rejected and ignored and just realizing it's not about that. It's about the preparation and understanding of how many swings you need to be able to develop a swing that hits, you know what I mean? So I have a nice little package and process and how I'm reaching out to investors, and I'm just going to do it one at a time as I discover them rather than like go and like research. I'm just letting them like show up. So it's like some investor tweeted and I liked the tweet, or I just randomly thought of something and I go and try to find their email. I'm not going to go like find a VC list and go and, because like that's just terrible. And then I'm going to just focus on the brand and the product. I thought of today that it's like onboarding matters and outreach matters, but your brand and your product matter most. They matter, much, much more. So just coming back to that, how do I make the product better? What's next? What's missing? Yeah, I've been in a lot of work mode, but I've been able to do my workouts every day, and that's been really good. I've been doing these 12-minute foundation workouts that have been like really setting up my body, just better core, better distribution of weight and like posture correction, and I'll just notice myself hinging in a better way when I'm doing like day-to-day movements. Just like I can hinge a little better, and I realize that there's this core that kind of encapsulates your body, and it has to stay strong, but also like be able to relax really easily, and it needs to kind of stack on itself. Otherwise it gets imbalanced, and then you have like musculoskeletal things. So a lot of like making sure I'm like doing these like primal squats and doing like just taking a moment to do like, I just did like 12 squats and like lifted my baby in the air. So I'm like doing like a little circuit. Little things like that add up. But having that like big official workout every day is key, and that one was so hard for me for so long. I'd always be like, it kind of worked out. It was never like, nobody interrupt me, I'm in a flow, like. A big one is just having a workout on your phone and you just like watch it and do it with them. That one's like, seems to be the way. And it's basic to most people, but to me, I'm like, it's so profound. I finally discovered that value. Because in the past, I'd work out with videos because my friends would open up the computer and we'd like work out to them. And I would just be like, like I'd either find a way to get out of it or I'd just be like miserable. So, figuring it out. All right, well, I think that's it, clearly. I don't know, I could just meditate for a second and see if something comes through. I notice body tension, and there's this like, it's almost kind of like this flinching pain that's like chronic, little like burning. It's like almost like if you were like to flex a muscle until it just like hurt, and then you let go, but the flex stayed. That's like how tension kind of feels sometimes. and it's like in my upper back. And I noticed it as I was like driving to go to the coffee shop to work today. And I was like, I could stretch through this and like feel this frustration and this fear if that pain was gonna stay, or why is that pain there? Like kind of the victim or the fear mindsets start to creep in. And I was like, what if I just relax completely into it and breathe into it? And even if it takes me somewhere scary, I just allow it to do that because I trust. And I did that, and it feels so much better. And I can feel where I could do it a lot more. And one thing I noticed with posture is like, if you took someone with average or subpar posture, which I would say most people are obviously average or subpar, I would say the average is subpar these days. I mean, it would be hard to argue because of like phones and chairs and sitting all day. Like there's so many things that prove that that's a fact, not an opinion. So anyways, I would say that if I took someone with subpar posture and I said, let me show you correct posture, there would be certain areas that you couldn't simulate perfect posture with the average person, because you have to mold posture. You can't just like, like, hey, posture, and then someone sits up straight, but guess what? They're flexing things in the wrong way, and they're like basically faking the good posture. And that's one method to kind of get good posture, is like fake it. But eventually you're just like flexing and overworking muscles to hold it. You have to build like stabilizing muscles and like build from the ground up, like I was saying. You have to stack the core. And the core isn't just like this muscle. I think the core is like, it's the musculoskeletal system. Like it's the muscles and the skeleton working together and everything else in between. So I would say that the core is almost like everything. And then the way you can like mold the core back to ideal posture is you have to understand yourself. So walking around in a room, like dim the lights, walk around the room and just like be a monkey for a bit and see where you're holding your shoulders tight, just kind of like bob around, jump around, lay on the ground, just wiggle, like doing everything that looks silly. And you're going to start to see where you were like holding yourself up in these like fake postures and these like, like it's like tough guy that does this, but that's not a real stance. He's upholding this with belief and like deep inner wounds that he's trying to compensate for. And so it's like this compensation posture, and then it becomes you like start to get used to it. Like if you hold your hand up like this long enough, eventually like putting it down would feel weird, and so you'd almost like do this for a few seconds or a minute. You kind of feel like, whoa, like, it's like that over years and years and years. Because you have to change the belief in yourself and the belief in the world, and realize that you're safe, and become more like proud of yourself, and like expand your energy, and you'll start to like sit up straight. But you also just intuitively notice where your posture is wrong and just start breathing, and it will kind of self-correct as well. Hannah just walked in. It completely interrupted my flow. And I was like, just gonna throw away the whole video because I was like embarrassed. I was like, whatever. She's like, sorry. I'm like, you wouldn't have known, so I'm not mad at you. I'm just like, I feel stupid. Like I don't know what I was doing. But I hope that that was valuable if you have musculoskeletal tension. Main takeaway is just like relax and listen and start to just like modify and iterate, and you'll find it start to compound. And really it's just those things that you've been resisting, those are usually the things, like for me, clear full workouts, so key. So thank you for watching, and if if you want to get a hold of me, just go to my typo. And yeah, love you guys.